What's up, everybody? Hope you all had a great weekend. I know I did watching football, and that's what we're going to talk about here today. We had one of the, I know that it's recency bias, but possibly one of the best divisional rounds in recent history. Obviously, the only dud was the 49ers and the Seahawks, which wasn't a good game at all, but there was a lot of exciting plays. At least the first play of the game is a kickoff return, so that gets exciting right away. But as far as the game, that one was not close. We'll leave that one for last. We'll talk about that one at the end. But we got to start with the main event. I mean, the Rams, the Bears, that game was incredible. And it just seems like this season, whatever game the Bears were in was going to be incredible down the stretch. And we got another one. Caleb does his magical stuff at the end. Incredible throw. It's going to be shown as a 17-yard touchdown on a box score when we look back at this years from now. But that was like a 45-yard looking touchdown to Cole Kmet in the corner of the end zone. And it really just felt at that point like, man, the Bears are destined. Like, this is destiny. They are going to go all the way and win the Super Bowl. And then, of course, like football does and the football gods do, karma, the luck evens out at the end of the game there in overtime. Caleb throws the pick. The Rams get the ball back. They still have to drive down the field, don't forget. But at that point, you felt like with a guy like Matthew Stafford, it was going to happen. And honestly, they still kind of settled for a 42-yard field goal. Not a cheap shot with a kicker that they brought in this season, not a veteran kicker that's been around forever. So didn't feel like it was for sure that they were going to win it even at that point. But the kicker makes it, and obviously the Rams advance. But what an incredible game. It really just was a wild football game. And I really just think that the Rams really were very poorly coached in this game, if you ask me. Watching Sean McVay, who to me, he was a top 3 coach in this season. And just as far as his name, his history, how he coached the Rams this year. But I thought he did a pretty bad job, to be honest, coaching, because they abandoned the run completely for 2 quarters at that point. It was just a very, very tough watch for me watching the Rams play football. I mean, how many times did we see the Rams get the ball and go pass? Like, even after a turnover, they get the ball, it's in the fourth quarter, and they just went to pass it 3 straight times until finally they kind of got it together a little bit to set up that potentially game-winning touchdown drive with the Kyren Williams touchdown in the corner of the end zone. But then obviously, the magic from Caleb Williams was just unbelievable. And so I really wanted to I'm looking up these stats that I want to read off to you guys real quick, because obviously Caleb does magician things. I mean, the way he comes through at the end is wild. But I'm going to read you 3 stat lines really quickly, okay? 24 for 48, 361 yards passing, 50% completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Okay? That's one stat line that I'm reading you. The next one, 24 for 46, 323 yards, 52% completion, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. All right, and option C, 23 for 42, 54, let's say 55% completion, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Which stat line to you is the best? Now, again, option 1, 24 for 48, 361, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Option 2, 24 for 46, 323, 4 touchdowns, no picks. Option 3, 23 for 42, 257, 55% completion, 2 touchdowns, 3 picks. I'll give you a second. Did you figure out which one you would rather have? I would rather have the 4 touchdowns and 0 interception game, right? Well, guess what? Those stats are Jordan Love in the loss to Chicago. Okay? The other 2 stat lines are Caleb Williams against Green Bay in his first playoff game and Caleb Williams against the Rams in his second playoff game. So I'm not here to rain on the Bears' successful season. They had a great season. But I also think that people are completely losing sight of what Caleb Williams has been. I'm not going to say what he is because he's still a young quarterback. But we are falling for the bait as a sports audience here thinking to ourselves, oh my God, Caleb's a top quarterback in this league. Just because he makes highlight plays doesn't negate the fact that he doesn't have a great completion percentage. In the playoffs, at least, his biggest strength, I always thought, was that he doesn't turn the ball over. And in the playoffs, for whatever reason, he has turned it over. And you know what? In the Rams game, you can blame the last pick on DJ Moore's effort. Fine, I'll give you that. You can blame the second pick if you want on his receiver not helping him out and trying to play DB and knock the ball down. But that one was on Caleb. You can't really negate that one. That one's on Caleb. The first interception on fourth down, he overthrew his guy. That one is on Caleb. There's just certain things. Again, he's young. The playoffs are a different beast, okay? But we see that play at the end of the game where he throws it up to Cole Kmet. It's balls in the air for 40 yards. And he's kind of wide open, and he makes the catch, and we automatically go from thinking like, man, Caleb had a stinker to, oh, my God, Caleb Williams is him. He is the guy. The same thing happened against Green Bay. For 3 quarters, he was pedestrian. He had 2 interceptions. Completion percentage was not good. And then at the end, he has the great throw to Rome Odunze on fourth down to save the game. Then he has a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. And like we think the highlights, the 3 plays out of 40, 45 plays, launch him up to this superstar podium that I'm not sold on. Okay. And I'll talk more about the quarterbacks and things like that as I try to do another pod later. But I just think it's important for people to realize, like, you would have rather had the Jordan Love stat line, and he ended up losing that game. So yes, I get it. Wins, loss, QB stat, whatever. But Jordan Love played better in the playoff game against Chicago. But obviously the storyline is, look at the Jordan throw that Caleb made to Rome Odunze. Yesterday, if the Bears would have beat the Rams, today would have been everyone would have been all over Caleb. They already are all over how good Caleb was. But I would have rather had Stafford's stat line where, yeah, he didn't throw for a touchdown, but he didn't turn the ball over. So again, I'm not trying to even just, like I said, the Bears had a successful season, but the one thing I would trust more is that they have a great head coach than to say they have a great quarterback. Okay? Like, I don't see that. He needs to be more efficient. So that's that. As far as the Rams go, like I said, Sean McVay really, I thought, let me down. The Rams were my Super Bowl pick at the start of the playoffs. Remember, I said Rams, Texans. But after yesterday and how he coached and abandoned the run, there was a point in the game where I'm pretty sure the Rams had thrown 27 passes and had 12 rushing attempts. That is a ratio for failure, especially going up against a Bears team whose rushing defense ranks towards the bottom of the league. So I don't know. I was very disappointed. I thought Sean McVay put him in a bad spot. I mean, Stafford threw 42 times, and then they ended up running the ball at least, close to 30 times, because towards the end there, they started leaning on the run a little bit more. But there was a point in that game where they just abandoned the run completely. And I couldn't believe what I was watching from a coach of Sean McVay's caliber. Now, I will say this, moving forward, after watching this game, I was kind of ready to switch my pick and jump on Seattle's bandwagon, but I will say that McVay did own up to it. He literally said in his post-game presser that he coached terribly, and that is not heard of very often from these guys sometimes. I think that when they win, they just look at the positive and that's it, but he was very critical of himself and how he coached, and literally he said it, how he abandoned the run. And the fact that he owned up to it makes me think, all right, maybe he can own those mistakes and have a more balanced attack, which the Bears do great. And that's why I think Ben Johnson is a great head coach. He does not abandon the run. I mean, Caleb threw 42 times between DeAndre Swift and Common Ungai. Just those two, they had 32 rushing attempts. So that's more even. That's how it should be. That's a balanced offense. Ben Johnson does a great job of that. All right. Well, enough of that game, but that was the game of the weekend. What a damn game that was. All right. The other game, Texans at Patriots. I'll start with the Patriots really quickly. Drake May did not play that great. He had 4 fumbles, but the Patriots defense kept them in the game. There was a point where I thought, man, if the Texans just did anything here in the second half, they can steal this game, because every time the Patriots had the ball, it almost felt like there towards the middle, you kind of felt like maybe the Texans defense was going to make a play more than the Patriots were going to make a play. Now, with Caleb, with Drake May, these Bo Nix, these guys are young quarterbacks, okay? Like, they're making their first, second playoff start. So I'm giving Caleb a pass. That's why I'm not saying this is who he is. No, it's not who he is. He hasn't had enough experience yet, but it is who he has been. Okay. With Drake May, who he has been is a young quarterback that has a bad offensive line. So his turnovers are, I don't think, so much on his shoulder as they are on the team as a whole, but he does need to do a better job of protecting the football and understanding, how important possessions are in the playoffs. And I think he will do that. But he obviously, I'm not really trying to say that he's played bad, but he hasn't played good is all I'm saying. He was an MVP candidate, runner-up probably during the regular season for a reason. He hasn't been that these playoffs. But because the Patriots defense has been able to play pretty damn good, like, that's why they're in this. They're in the AFC championship game. And you know what? I do have confidence that Drake May, if the offensive line can fix some of their issues, I don't worry about him necessarily passing the football as much as I worry about him protecting the football in the pocket. But we got to talk about the Texans. CJ Stroud, I would have benched him at halftime. I'm just going to put it that way. He threw 4 interceptions, and it's not even the interceptions. Look, bad throw. If there's a tip ball, it's the decisions. It's him deciding when to throw it and when to just take the sack, where to throw it. Sometimes that's not the guy's covered. And yes, bad throws as well. I mean, Carlton Davis had one of the interceptions because he threw it behind his receiver. The other interception by Carlton Davis was a great play by Carlton Davis, but that's probably not where you should go with the football. I just thought his decision making, his confidence, he looked rattled. Now, give him credit in the second half, that first drive. I do think at that point he was on a short leash. If he would have gone 3 and out, maybe they pull him and put Davis Mills in. But I almost think that would have been better for Houston because the coach, D'Amico Ryans, just didn't have the balls, for lack of a better word, to pull him at halftime. I would have pulled him at halftime because what do you have to lose? Is your team going to quit on you at halftime if you pull CJ Stroud? No. They're still competing. They were only down, I think, I'll check right now what they were down at halftime. The halftime score was 21-10. They're down 2 scores at halftime. They're not going to quit because you bench CJ Stroud. That defense is relentless. Okay. Now he played better in the second half, but it's just one of those situations where I think you put Davis Mills in there and it's just a different confidence booster. Even if that first drive would have resulted in a field goal, which is what happened for Houston. And now it's a 1-possession game. That defense, everyone is suddenly like, okay, we can do this. So I just thought, again, they're going to have to deal with this anyway now in the offseason. So if you bench him, it's not like now, like, because you kept him in there, there's no questions being asked. He was 20 for 47. That's horrible. 212 yards. Now, his offensive line didn't help him. Of course, yes, it's not all on him. But as a quarterback, with a defense like you have, you cannot be making those mistakes. You'd be better off taking those sacks every time instead of putting the ball in harm's way and only throwing it when you guys wide open. So I don't know. That was just a weird game to watch because I really felt like the Texans were one play away or a spark. And I just would have been like, all right, look, I can see that CJ ain't got it. His confidence is shot. I mean, the guy, every time a turnover happened, poor guy, he looked like he hadn't eaten in 4 days. And he just found out that the restaurant he was going to go to is closed. Like, that's what he looked like. You can't have that. Not in the playoffs. So, I don't know. And we'll see. Like I said, New England, good for them, man. They just, Vrabel, to me, I love Mike Vrabel. And I just think that he's done a great job with that squad. And the players they brought in have paid off. Look at Stephon Diggs making a hell of a catch. I mean, Carlton Davis, all these guys that we talked about. They've just been big time game changers for them. Now their offensive line, that's an issue. And that leads us to obviously who they're going to end up playing, which is the Denver Broncos. But now they're without Bo Nix, which changes things dramatically. Obviously, that's the Broncos starting quarterback. And, we've talked about the catch to no catch, the interception situation. It was an interception, okay? End of story. That's it. Like the guy is, falling as he's catching it. So he has to complete the fall for that to be a catch. He doesn't complete the fall because midway through the fall, the Broncos guy has the ball in his hands and controls it. So that's an interception. Josh Allen, dude, you didn't play well, man. And yeah, I mean, it's sad to see. I pull for Josh Allen. I think he's a great quarterback, arguably the best quarterback in the league, but he had a bad game. He really did. He just did. That turnover, the fumble that gave the Broncos 3 points. What was that, man? Like, you can't be doing that. That's okay. Like, I don't want to say it's okay, but that's excusable if you're Caleb or Drake May or Bo Nix. But you're Josh Allen, man. You've been in the playoffs so many times. The value of possessions in the playoffs is just on another level. And to do it in your own side of the 50, where now you set up the Broncos with 3 free points, essentially, that was just crucial. I thought that changed the game completely at that point. And yeah, I mean, at that point, it made a 2-possession game. The Bills at that point were only down 17-10. And then he fumbles, and now it's 20-10, and it changes things. I still think they fought. They played all right in the second half. But some of the interceptions, I mean, that one, the 50-50 ball, you want to call it, sure, we'll let that one slide. But the other interception by Josh Allen, just unnecessary. The defender had great position, and that's on Josh Allen. So those are 2 clear-cut turnovers that were just on Josh Allen. You can't have that. The other one was a strip fumble, and the other one was obviously his fumble situation there, that he had at the end of the half. But I will say this. You got to give credit to the Broncos defense, okay? This is why I picked the Broncos. Their defense is legit. So, yeah, Josh Allen made some dumb decisions, and there was a 50-50 ball. But, the strip sack, fumble, that's a Denver defense turnover. They caused that, right? The interception near the goal line on the go ball by Josh Allen, that's the defense making a play also. So you give the defense credit. Bo Nix had a pick, but that was his only turnover. He had 3 touchdowns. So again, unfortunate for them with him getting hurt, but I will say this, we'll talk about it more as we preview championship weekend, but I think the Broncos have a chance. I know Jarrett Stidham is the backup, but also I just think it's really hard to prep for a guy that there's no film on. I mean, you can watch film from every single game this year with Bo Nix and know exactly what the Broncos like to do with him, what they don't like to do with him, how they'll run their offense. Now it's kind of a wild card. You don't know what they're going to do with Jarrett Stidham. There's film from 2 years ago. So I'm not counting the Broncos out. That's going to be such a tough pick for me. Patriots, Broncos, I have no idea. I really have no idea. It could go either way, but I'm not just, removing the Broncos and saying the Patriots are going to the Super Bowl. I think Sean Payton, he coached okay this game. I didn't think he was tremendous. Again, I don't like when you're making your, young quarterback throw 46 times and you're only rushing the ball 20 times essentially, because Bo Nix had 12 carries himself. Again, some of them were planned runs, so I'll give them that. But they had like 15 rushing attempts, 20 rushing attempts to 46 passing attempts. Now, this is a more high-scoring game, and you got to read the game. But again, I just think that I don't like that ratio. I think if they do that against New England, I think Vrabel is going to be smarter than that. And Vrabel isn't going to just put it all on Drake May, and he's going to, count on his running game. I mean, Drake May threw 27 times against Houston. And between Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson, they ran the ball 28 times. That's a 50-50 balance. That's how you control time of possession. That's how you keep your young quarterback, try to keep him out of harm's way, even though that offensive line, like I said, I just think Vrabel was able to read the fact that he doesn't have a great O-line, and he said, you know what, I'm not going to put Drake May in those situations. And he still was in those situations because he got sacked 5 times. So, again, coaching matters. Coaching matters. All right, in the last game, I mentioned it at the top, but Seattle was way too much for San Francisco. I mean, the Niners say what you will, Brock Purdy was the only one that seemed to have showed up for this game, and even he struggled. 15 for 27, 140, a pick. The Seattle defense, just so good, so good. And Mike McDonald really doing a great job coaching. Sam Darnold threw 17 times. Again, not a knock on Sam Darnold, but the guy's banged up. He's been known to freeze up in big games. So what do? You take the ball out of his hands as much as you can, control the environment around him, put your team in positions to succeed. And guess what? Now he has his first playoff win under his belt. This gives him confidence. This gives him a chance to feel good about what he's going to do next week. So I love the way Mike McDonald coached. Again, it helps when the opening kickoff is ran back for 7, right? But at the same time, when you have a Seattle defense like that, just like with Houston's defense, you just need a quarterback to be smart. And CJ Stroud just was the complete opposite of Sam Darnold. And that's why Sam Darnold got paid what he got paid, and I would say is a good quarterback in the league. He quarterbacked well, right? 12 for 17, 124, 1 touchdown, no picks, safe. That's how you do it, and you move on. And we'll see. Seattle and the Rams, that's going to be an exciting game. And again, just a great game, a great weekend of games. And one more thing before I get off this pod that I want to talk about when I was talking about Caleb too. The one thing I want to give Caleb a lot of credit for is that and I know that it's 4th down, so he has to throw it. And Caleb, to be honest, doesn't like to put the ball in harm's way. That's why he's so great at protecting the football during the regular season. I love, and again, maybe it's just a circumstance, but I don't understand why more guys don't give their receivers a chance like this. A wide receiver, in my opinion, or a tight end, whatever you want to say, already on any given play, if they have one-on-one coverage, has a tremendous advantage. Most of the time, they're bigger because the DBs are not tall, big guys, right? First of all. Second of all, they know the route they're running. The DB is guessing, right? Or following. They're not in the lead. They're not leading the route. Third, the receiver knows when the ball is coming. The DB does not. The receiver gets to see the ball before the DB does. So on any 50-50 balls, on any one-on-one situation, that should not, I don't care. I know we always say like, with Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, a 50-50 ball is not a 50-50 ball. It's an 80-20 ball. If it's one-on-one, there should never be a 50. It's never 50-50. The receiver has so much of an advantage than the defensive back. So, sometimes in these situations, when it's one-on-one like that, Cole Kmet is in the corner of the end zone. This is a big guy. I'll look it up and see how tall he is, but this is a big dude. So why not throw it? And you see, he's 6'6". Okay. The DB, covering him on that play is 5'11". So obviously the DB wasn't even in contention to break that pass down. But say they're just standing next to each other. Why would you not throw it up to him, right? And I'm not talking about Caleb. I'm talking about any quarterback. You throw it up. 7 inches in advantage. That's like anyone against their little brother out in the yard playing 500. You have an advantage. If you're both standing literally next to each other, the 6'6" guy better out jump the 5'11" guy. And he's bigger, like you can body him. So again, I'm not, it's kind of weird because I don't actually think Caleb does this enough. I don't think he takes chances during the regular season. That's why he protects the ball so well. But in these heroic situations where he's getting lucky, if you want to call it, or makes a play, I think he's so smart that he sees like, all right, it's one-on-one. My guy has an advantage. I'm throwing it. Like, again, I just think, I just want to rant about that because I just don't understand how quarterbacks don't do that more. And if it leads into an interception, that means the DB made a hell of a play. But all those advantages I just read off for a receiver, it's never a 50-50 ball. I'm sorry. That is always at least a 70-30. And then obviously if you have a Jefferson, a Chase, a CeeDee Lamb, whatever, that should skyrocket. That should be a 90-10 ball. But when all is equal, you take your shot. So I just want to talk about that because I wanted to talk about that in the beginning and forgot to bring that up. But again, Cole Kmet, yeah, you better catch that. If the ball's in the air and it's you and a 6'6" and a 5'11" guy, you better catch that. And obviously, this particular play ended up, he didn't even have to really jump. I'm not saying it's OPI. I'm just saying he pushed off the guy and he had 5 yards of space to make the catch. So this wasn't necessary. But if they're next to each other, how could he not catch that? So again, yeah, I just wanted to talk about that because I see that all the time in QBs holding the ball because the DB's in good position. Throw it up. Good position. Sure, you got 7 inches height on them. You got a good position. So anyway, that's my rant. All right, y'all. I will talk to you soon with some more podcasts here as we go on with the playoffs. Final Four. Who's it going to be? We'll figure it out in just a matter of weeks. Talk to you guys on the next one.